critical race theory has become a contentious issue, with the left accusing opponents of not wanting to teach about racial oppression, and those on the right claiming it is teaching that white people are oppressors and black people are victims. What exactly is critical race theory, and why is it so controversial? My guest is Dr. Richard Boshart, a plastic surgeon who practices in Tavares, Florida. He's a visiting fellow at Do No Harm. Doctor, thank you very much for coming on. So what's the problem with critical race theory?
Well, thank you, Larry. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and say a few words. The problem with critical race theory, and I've had a graduate education on this over the past 3 years, that it sees everything in this country, every institution, every corporation, every social interaction as somehow demonstrating systemic racism. Everything is seen through a racial lens. So what it's doing is it's basically dividing this country along racial identities. And I believe it's a very toxic and divisive ideology that has essentially taken over. I was shocked to learn that my own professional organization of the American College of Surgeons was not immune to this.
You know, it's everywhere. Now, tell me about, you said you've had a course in it or studying it over the last 3 years. Tell me what that entailed.
Well, I had never even heard about critical race theory until about 3 years ago, when I first saw a transcript of a lecture given at the American College of Surgeons. And the lecture was about excellence, inclusion, and diversity. Not a single word in the lecture was about excellence. It was about diversity and inclusion. And that made me very curious and concerned. And so I started to do some reading. And I came across the videos and writings of people like Thomas Sowell, Glenn Lowry, Ian Rowe, Robert Woodson, Coleman Hughes, Ian Hirsi, and learned basically about the ideology of critical race theory. And at first it seemed to be kind of an academic interest, because I thought, gee, this is going to have an effect in this country. And then I realized it's actually affecting surgery. And I was shocked to learn how far along it's come.
What's that? The great Eldersky has in his hands a pair of tan My slippers. Indeed, I do. Look at these things. Are they not beautiful? Beautifully designed? But in the unlikely event that you prefer a different design, we have a different style. Different colors, two different styles. Just go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER, or call the number on your screen. And this is the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Even better than the original. You've never slept on anything more comfortable. Call the number on your screen. Remember, there are over 100 MyPillow products to choose from. Or you can go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER. This is a 6-pack of towels that work. And the reason they're called towels that work is because they absorb water. Isn't that what you want your towels to do? They come in different colors. Again, MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Finally, this is the Giza Dream bed sheet. They come in different colors. Giza is an area in the world where the finest cotton is found. It's in Egypt. And mine, as you can see, is in white because I am the black face of white supremacy, but you're probably not. You may want a different color. They come in different sizes because beds come in different sizes. Again, call the number on your screen or go to MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER. That's MyPillow.com, promo code ELDER. Yeah, from what I can tell, Doctor, the argument is that racism, Jim Crow is still alive and well, and whatever inequity that takes place is all directly attributable to that. It's like the 1619 Project. The woman that did that is a big proponent of critical race theory, and she argues, for example, the disparate rates of people in prison has to do with systemic racism and originates because America remains an endemically racist society. Never mind the higher crime rates in the black community, and those who are victimized are also black. But the disparity itself, she argues, is because of systemic racism, and it is vital that critical race theory teach us that through that prism.
Well, this came home to roost for me personally. I was recently banned for life in the American College of Surgeons. And you imagine if someone is banned for life, what they have done must be pretty awful. All I really did, Larry, is to object to the inclusion of critical race theory in the values and in the administration of the American College of Surgeons. I wrote a blog on their online discussion forum in which I expressed some concerns and my objection to looking at disparities in surgery through a racial lens. The ACS came out and actually wrote that they were dealing with systemic or structural racism in the ACS, and they went far beyond that to say that surgeons are basically racist, or I guess the term is implicitly racist. They also said that the practice of surgery is racist, and what they pointed to as their evidence is that there are disparities in the outcomes of surgery in different groups, including minority groups versus other groups. And the conclusion was that it has to be racial, and they have gone so far, Larry, and this is unbelievable, to state things like black patients may do better if they have black surgeons. The push now has been to introduce DEI, which to me is nothing but a guise for critical race theory, into the ACS. And as a result of my post objecting on their discussion forum, I was eventually banned for life from being able to post any longer. I was told that I was being disrespectful, that my posts were inappropriate. And I have requested, I can't even tell you how many times, a half a dozen or more times, requested specifically to be given a single example of a post or comment that I put that was objectionable. I have never received a single one.
Evidence, evidence, evidence. We spit on evidence.
Well, don't bother me with the facts, right?
My ex-wife is a doctor. I met a lot of doctors. I don't know a single one who went to medical school so that he or she could come out and practice their racism against patients. So when you are confronted with inequities in medical outcome, how do you refute that if the outcome is not disparate because of the alleged systemic racism that these people claim?
Well, surgery is so multifactorial. There are so many moving parts. I mean, you have the patient and the medical history they bring to the situation. They have the circumstances of the surgery. You can do everything right in surgery, and you can still get a bad outcome. The question is that bad outcome due to something other than racism? And apparently, the answer right now seems to be no. So when you look at disparities, you have to look at all the confounding factors as opposed to pointing out to one predetermined, prearranged, pre-agreed upon cause. One of my favorite people, and I'm sure you must know him, I suspect. I wish I had a chance to meet him, is Thomas Sowell, who has written very, very eloquently about how disparities do not equal discrimination. And we have to be very careful, especially when we're making radical changes to existing institutions. Lowering the bar, for example, in medical education, trying to increase diversity because of some idea that you have to have proportionate representation, to me, is in surgery is completely the wrong thing to do. I think we need to obviously pursue diversity, but not at the expense of excellence.
I would say it's the wrong thing to do, not just in surgery, but I can't think of an area where it is the right thing to do. I mean, imagine hiring engineers who build bridges based upon diversity. Imagine hiring airline pilots based on diversity as opposed to whether or not he or she can fly the damn plane. I have a friend who's a left-wing guy, a law professor, and he is a big proponent of admitting people based upon racial diversity. Because the school has pretty exacting requirements, they lowered the standards for some of the minority students who got in. So fast forward a couple of years later, I'm at his house, doctor, and he's slamming the pen, he's pounding the table. And he goes, God, what's going on? I went in, I said, what's going on? He said, well, some of these students they just can't. I said, are these the black ones that you admitted under lower standards? And he turned about 4 or 5 different shades of white.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to see more of that unless we start to promote excellence above everything else. There are certain professions where you cannot poison the well of trust, and medicine is definitely one of the top ones. If you have patients wondering if their surgeon, who might be of a different race, is going to treat them as well as someone else of their race would, I think what you have done is you've completely destroyed the patient-doctor relationship, which goes back to the dawn of time when, patients had to trust the
Right.
person taking care of them.
And finally, doctor, what bothers me about all of this, America has never been less racist than it is right now today. Barack Obama got elected with a higher percentage of the white vote. The idea that the police are systemically racist is refuted by the data. If anything, the police are more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a black person than a white person. Lowering standards increases dropout rates. They increase dropout rates in law school, in medical school, in colleges and universities. You're not helping people by lowering the standard, especially in an era where people are less racist than they have ever been.
Well, I've heard this from many quarters. I'm not hearing it much from the people that are pushing me and pushing me out of the ACS, but I've heard exactly what you've said from many different quarters, and including from many black intellectuals that seem to be kind of being pushed aside as though their voice doesn't count.
Well, when I ran for governor of California, doctor, I was called the black face of white supremacy. So there's that. Dr. Richard Boshart, thank you very much for coming on, doctor. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Larry.
My pleasure. Now, I know you love the show, so hit that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button. We want to get our subscriptions up. And scroll down, you'll see where you can get on our mailing list. Why? Because believe it or not, from time to time, YouTube has issues with our feed. I don't know why, but to make sure you don't miss any of them, you got to be on our mailing list. Also, you see that donate button? Click that, throw a little something in the tip jar. Make sure we can continue to giving you candid, hard-hitting programming. Larry with epoch.com, Larry with epoch.com. I'm Larry Elder. This has been the Larry Elder Show for Epoch Times. Remember, we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.